Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. So today we're going to look at the Kata Ananku, which is the requirement for, in my dojo, the 8th kyu blue belt. Ananku is an interesting kata. Now if you go back to some of my earlier videos, I introduced the concept of 3, which means keep going until you're done, basically. So in Seisan, for instance, we have 3 movements repeated, we have 3 movements repeated, we have 3 movements repeated, side to side. Basically, that's just telling us practice these moves a lot. This is the fighting move, practice it in every direction, practice it repeatedly, do it repeatedly on your opponent until he's down, however you want to interpret that. Seisan kata has, at the beginning, a move which is derived from the sanchin kata of other systems. This repetition of movements, again, is partly to harden the body, partly to train basic block punch, counter, release, wrist release, tweety, all sorts of fighting applications within it. But it repeats 3 times, then repeats another move 3 times, and repeats another move 3 times. And so the kata is pretty much a drill, if you will, which is why we use it, in my opinion, as a foundation of Seidokan karate, because it drills specific fighting movements rather than teaching the individual encounter that each fighting movement represents. Ananku uses many of the same moves and sometimes is relegated to less emphasis, is given less attention than Seisan. But Ananku gets right to the meat of it. There's none of that 3 repetitions. It's here we're fighting, we're doing this fighting move, we're doing this fighting move, we do it on the right side, we do it on the left side, we balance our body. There's a lot more of the straight into the fighting, straight into the self-defense aspects with Ananku. So I like it. It basically means peace or safety from the south, is the interpretation that it's given. Although it's worth noting that in the late 1700s, early 1800s, there was a Chinese from Foochow province, reputedly, and again, oral history because there was no written language in Okinawa, who drifted ashore and, depending on the account you read, either settled or was a derelict living in a cave or lived in a village or lived on a remote side of a village, however you want to look at it. But his name was Anan. And Anan was seen practicing his fighting forms, and so several Okinawans requested tuition from him. One of them, notably, is Kosaku Matsumura, who lived in the early 1800s, 1829, 1815, 29, somewhere in there, I believe, is where he was born. Anyway, he learned these fighting moves from this Chinese man from Foochow named Anan. Now, whether Ananku is directly derived from that, whether they translated his name to mean peace and safety from the south, whether, we don't know. The origins of Ananku are pretty much lost through the oral traditions of history. Nobody really knows. Even Shoshin Nagamine of Matsubayashi-ryu says nobody knows where it was formed. It is pretty much accepted to be of the Tomari lineage. So we have Shuri, Naha, and Tomari, very close by villages to each other, but each had their own distinct fighting emphasis. So, without further ado, little history there for you. Ananku kata, I will do it simply facing the front. I might do it once from the side. I don't like doing it from the back because then when I bow, you get my worst view. So, also differences in different Seidokan dojos with the hand salute. I haven't really addressed this. Most Okinawan systems have their feet apart, bring the hands in, up, and down, and the fingers will either be out or down together depending on the system. As the hands come together here, so do the feet. So again, in a lot of Seidokan instructors have adopted this, which I believe Tamai instituted back in the late 70s, early 80s. But if you go back to older versions and most Okinawan systems, we stay upright. And so in the interest of staying true to Okinawa in general, I have chosen, as have a couple of other instructors, to simply do the hand salute. The bow announces the kata, Ananku. The hand salute for the Seidokan version into our yoi and prep. Okay, so that's my simple introduction to it. Again, if you do one of the other hand salute, bow, combination introductions. It's not wrong. You do what each instructor in his dojo wants you to do. The kata content itself, 99.9%, we're all the same. Okay? So, Ananku. Ananku. So I'll do it once this way so you can kind of, actually I think this way, so you can see it from a little bit different perspective, maybe some of the moves from the back and the front. Ananku. And there you have Ananku Kata. Again, direct instruction from your teacher for whatever his nuances and emphases are. Location of the Kiai can vary. You hear, I Kiai on the block. Sometimes I'll Kiai on the punch here. Again, that's not set in stone the way a Japanese system would. Technically, every move has an internal Kiai. Then specific places where we let it out based on what we're emphasizing. How I distinguish that is, for example, when I go here to here, if I'm picturing that as a throw follow-up to the elbow, I'll Kiai here because that's the finishing move. If I picture this as a block, and then I'm hitting the guy, then I'll Kiai there, because that's the finishing move. So essentially we're going to Kiai on whatever visualization we're making of what the finishing technique or blow is. And so there can be some variation. It's not 100% set in stone, but it does fit the parameter of Kiai on a finish. A little out of breath. Okay. Thank you again for joining. As always, please like, share, subscribe. Send others this way if it's helpful or useful to you. Comment, ask questions, and I'm happy to interact and engage with those. Thank you for joining today's Seidokan Saturday, and as always, keep practicing.